Hi, welcome today to our webinar. I'm really excited to have Carsten with us from BARC. My name is Josh Good. I'm Senior Director here at Qlik. We're going to talk today about the 6 trends of cloud analytics, what you need to know, how cloud's really changing the analytics market, and where Qlik's going to take it based on where you, our customers, and our potential customers are driving towards. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Carsten, the founder and CEO of BARC, and he'll talk about his research that he's conducted around the 6 trends around cloud analytics, and I think we have some really interesting things here. So please, take it away, Carsten.
Thank you, Josh, and a warm welcome from me also for today's webinar. I'm very happy to share with you some of the findings and results we got around cloud analytics. At BARC, we are looking at this topic for many years now, and with our about 20 analysts focused on the analytics topics, we see a lot of customers right now looking at cloud for BI, for data management, for analytics, and this was the reason why we conducted a more broader research study that was meant to get more insights into the market and what's happening in customer companies, in user companies, around this topic. So we conducted a global survey and had over 370 companies participating. And this was already the 2nd edition of the survey. So we also collected data some years earlier, which allows us to compare also some of the results we're seeing and also to find some trends in the market. And this is the topic of today's webinar. We pulled out 6 trends that we found most interesting, and I would like to share them with you in the coming about 25-30 minutes, and hope you find it interesting what we have seen here. So the number 1 trend, and the first trend I would like to highlight on, is that we really see cloud BI now being at a tipping point. So it has been discussed, especially by vendors, for many years now, but we saw never really a good pickup on the customer side. So a lot of talk, but not a lot of things were actually being done. And we see this changing right now. So we think that 2016 was the tipping point where several things happened. And to sum it up, where we think the rising cloud acceptance is coming from, it's actually 3 things. One is that we see generally a rising cloud acceptance. If we talk to our customers, if we look at the survey results we got in this survey, but also in other surveys, we see this is one of the mainstream trends we can observe in the industry, that cloud infrastructures, cloud computing gets more and more accepted. And with that also then the cloud BI and cloud analytics adoption. So in our survey here, more than half of the respondents said the company they are working in is partially or fully committed to a cloud strategy. And on the opposite side, only 6% said they are opposed to cloud computing. And this number really has decreased over the last years. We have seen quite a big reservation by a lot of companies, and this has definitely decreased over the last years. What really supported this trend was that the vendors have really evolved both the infrastructure and the software offering. So first of all, we had the infrastructure that has been some concern, especially if we look at local regulation. For example, in many European countries, but also in other parts of the world, you have legislation in place that prevents companies from storing data, customer data or sensible data outside of the country. And with that, obviously, you had problems if a public cloud provider would only offer a data center in the US, for example. And this has evolved, so now we see a much more mature infrastructure in place, and a lot of these cloud offerings and cloud infrastructure is available in many countries. So this concern is really going away. And then on the other hand, the software offering also got more mature. And especially it's around hybrid scenarios, one of the key topics we are seeing evolving, and this is a trend I would like to highlight later on, where we see really a key consideration in making cloud BI successful. Another data point I can share with you here is that in our large BI survey, the BI survey 16, where we ask more than 2,000 users about their plans and their experience with vendors and so on, we got a pretty strong result of 55% of those users that said that cloud-based deployment of their BI solution is actually feasible. So they're not saying they're doing it today, but they think it's feasible. And this is also a number that has been rising over the last years quite a lot, also showing the rising cloud acceptance. If we look at the sample we had in our specific survey here in more detail, we can compare the data with data from 2013. So over the last 3 years, we saw a 50% rise in adoption in the sample. So 2013, we had less than 30% saying they are actually using the cloud for any component in their BI and data management program. In 2016, this was already up to 43%. So quite a strong momentum. This is non-representative data, obviously, so we are not saying that overall, globally, the total BI market is now 43% cloud, but in this specific sample, we have seen this rise, and we actually think you can transfer this result to the general market, but just be aware this is a result for this specific sample, but in itself, I think it shows that BI is at a tipping point. It really has passed this tipping point, and now we see a broader adoption. And one interesting question I think we have asked these participants of our survey was, why are you considering implementing BI and data management in the cloud? What are the drivers behind this movement? And you can see here that actually it's not one clear driver, not one single driver, but there's actually multiple ones. There's this list of drivers that is pretty close in terms of numbers of responses. And then you can see that it's flexibility as number one, which we can really underline that this is the most important driver to the cloud. It's really about the flexibility to use, not only to use resources, but also the flexibility to use different kinds of resources, to evolve your program internally. I mean, how many BI projects or programs actually know what the user acceptance will look like, how many users they will have in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? It's a lot of guesswork up front. And this flexibility has often not been really provided in traditional licensing and deployment models. And we see this is really bringing flexibility to the game, and this is one of the big requirements that users have today, that the world and the requirements is changing so quickly everywhere that they also need from the infrastructure and software side, they need a lot more flexibility than before. And the cloud and software as a service deployments can actually provide that. Number two is cost, which is interesting because we see some cost effects in cloud computing. For example, there's no upfront infrastructure cost. It's really more capital expenditure versus, it's more operational expenditure versus capital expenditure. We see that certain kinds of setup costs and maintenance costs are going down with customers, with clients using cloud solutions. On the other hand, if you look at it over the total cost of ownership, often cloud solutions are not less costly. So it's a different structure in the cost. It's also more flexibility in the cost. But this does not mean that it's totally less cost, but still it's one of the most important drivers, but well understood what this actually means. Number three is scalability here. I mean, that's one of the obvious reasons for the cloud, that deployment model really helps you in scale up and down, also down, which is important and often is a big problem. If you buy infrastructure yourself, then typically you buy it big, so you are prepared for any things that can happen, and often it's quite hard to scale down again, and here you can really scale in terms of user, in terms of data, in terms of compute power needed. And this again gives you the flexibility you need. So I think this is quite interesting to see what's driving companies in the cloud, and with the rising importance of these drivers here, we see also the rising acceptance of cloud deployments for BI and data management. Second trend I would like to share with you is that we are seeing that small and mid-sized companies are actually leading the way in this trend into the cloud. If you look at this data in more detail, what I pulled out here is the deployment in use cases. So for both segments, BI and data management, we asked what are the primary use cases? What are the components you are deploying in the cloud? And we separated this out here between the company sizes. So the black bar you're seeing is the small and medium companies, and the blue bar are the large companies. So if we look at the results here, these are the top 3 components that are deployed in the cloud. We see that in any of these components, the small and mid-sized companies are showing a higher degree of deployment. So we can see that the small and mid-sized companies are deploying quicker in the cloud and have a higher share right now. And it often makes a lot of sense to explain this. First of all, they often don't have a big infrastructure in place already, which would prevent you, since you already made the investments, to go into a new infrastructure. And then maybe they're also more flexible in their decision making and faster in moving to new models, which might also explain this trend here. What we can also see on this slide are the top 3 components deployed in the cloud. So for BI, it's number 1 is BI tools. It's probably also the most traditional way, so that certain BI tools are deployed already cloud-based. Number 2 are BI servers. This is a trend we can observe. So more and more BI servers are also deployed in the cloud. Actually, a few years ago, let's say general BI software market wasn't there yet, wasn't ready yet, but this has changed over the years, and we now see more powerful components also being available in terms of BI servers, and BI servers also include typically a semantic model. So this is also where you store your metadata, where you know what objects you can actually provide to BI tools, and these are typically more powerful components. Number 3, and this is the component that has seen the biggest rise over the last 3 years, were visual discovery tools. So basically following the market trend, where we also could see a high rise in market share for visual discovery tools, and obviously also a high interest with customer companies, we see the same trend happening here in cloud BI, where visual discovery tools are gaining in interest, in traction, and are now at number 3 of the components deployed in the cloud. On the data management side, you can see that number 1 is here cloud-based data warehouses, which is, I think, the biggest trend we can observe. So changing or building new data warehouses in the cloud. Then number 2 would be ETL and data integration, often belonging a bit together, but being able to integrate data from both cloud-based and on-premises data sources using a cloud-based data integration tool is definitely a trend we can observe. And then on number 3, again, this is a new topic, data preparation. So this basically means the data pre-processing done by business analysts or by business users in general. And with the rising interest in this topic, we also saw this happening here in the cloud as the 3rd most deployed data management solution in the cloud. Trend number 3 is the question, who is actually using Cloud BI? Who's driving that? Who is the user in the company? And here we see a very clear trend. It's the power users that are dominating Cloud BI, and it's actually an increasing trend. If we look at the data, first of all, data that's not on the slide is that we have asked about the proportion of users, especially between power users and casual users. And we saw that power users are twice as likely to use Cloud BI than casual users. And then if we look into the activities that are done using cloud-based BI solutions, you see the result here on the slides. Number one is report dashboard consumption. I mean, this is the traditional way of using cloud-based BI solutions. So let's say more using it for publishing and then consuming ready-made information like in reports or on dashboards. But then at number 2 and number 3, we see that the power user activities, ad hoc analysis and exploration of data, and then also the authoring of report and dashboards are done more and more in the cloud. This also depends on the maturity of the software. Typically, the vendors had started with publication and consumption possibility in the cloud. And over the last years, the tools are getting more powerful also with these more power user or administrator-oriented tasks that they could also be performed in a cloud-based or in a software-as-a-service solution. And I think this also explains the trend we are seeing here, but right now it's really the power user that's driving Cloud BI. Fourth trend I would like to share with you is the topic of hybrid. I already talked about it a little bit, and later on Josh will also dwell into this topic from a Qlik perspective. But hybrid solutions, I think, are becoming prevalent and being the most important way to deploy Cloud BI. First of all, it's important to understand what is actually meant by hybrid, because this term is used a lot and in different scenarios. And first of all, there's a notion of a hybrid cloud, and we ask about the way BI and data management is deployed in terms of, is it a public cloud deployment? So are you using a public cloud infrastructure like Amazon, AWS, or Microsoft Azure, or maybe Google, which would be the larger public cloud providers? Or are you using a private cloud, meaning a cloud technology, but deployed on premises? Or is it hybrid? Are you using both public and private cloud? What we can see here with the data from 2013 and 2016, there is not a big trend going on, a move into the public cloud. It's a bit less private cloud, and hybrid cloud is more or less stable. So companies, we could say, are accepting the public cloud more and more. I think this is in line with the general trends I observed in the beginning. But this is the trend we can see here. So first, hybrid means it's a mixture, or you mix public and private cloud deployments. And with 30% in our sample here, it shows that this is, first of all, something that companies are doing or want to do, is that they want to have the flexibility to use basically both, more private cloud deployments, but also using the public cloud. And then there's the notion of hybrid BI or hybrid cloud BI, which is putting hybrid in a different setup here. And what we mean with that typically, or if you hear a vendor talking about that, is that they typically mean that you are mixing cloud and on-premises deployments. And I try to illustrate it in the chart below. What we often see are two pretty separated worlds. So if you buy a Cloud BI solution today, it's often that most of your components are actually deployed in the cloud, and you maybe can integrate, or not maybe, but you possibly can integrate on-premises data, but that's about it. Everything else is in the cloud. And vice versa, if you have an on-premises BI solution, typically most of your components will be installed on-premises. And you can also pull in cloud data as a first step. Over the last years, this has evolved a bit. So solutions have become more hybrid, meaning that you can actually interchange and you can mix these components better and more. So we can see that, for example, that now cloud-based BI solutions got more flexible also where the data is stored. So traditionally, they required really the data to be in their own data warehouse, in their own storage. And today, often what is possible is that you can mix that. So you have some data in the cloud, in a cloud-based data warehouse, but you can also mix that with on-premises data that remains in your data warehouse on-premises. And still the BI server can access both, and most probably, or you should have a common semantic model across those two data stores, and be able to use that in that way. And vice versa, having an on-premise BI solution that can also integrate data from cloud-based data warehouses. So we are seeing a movement to become more hybrid, but we can also argue from our analyst standpoint that there's still a way to go. So in most solutions today, you can really see where they're coming from, where they're strong, and they're starting to open up for the other world. But let's say a true hybrid solution that would let you really interchange and mix all these components very flexibly, that's something I think that's still up to come and where we still need some development. And actually it's going on, and probably we'll see a bit more about Qlik's plans in a few minutes. Fifth trend I would like to share with you is looking at the issues, the challenges that companies have with their cloud deployments. I think it's always important to look at that too, because obviously it's often something new for companies to embark on, and it's important, I think, to understand what are the challenges. And what we can see here is that non-technical challenges are starting to get more important than technical challenges. And this is the result on the question we asked our participants here. So we asked them, what are the major challenges you are facing in your cloud BI and data management initiatives? And you see that number one is security. I would argue that this is both a technical and a non-technical issue, because security obviously has some technical aspects, but also a lot of aspects around governance, data governance, around privacy, and so on. So security is number one. And when we talk to our clients here, often there's also a level of uncertainty about it. It's a level of that the legislation is often not up to speed, that especially around privacy, there's still lots of questions. What is now actually allowed, what is not? There are lots of gray zones around that, and that there are simply too many open issues remaining around that. And the second biggest challenge mentioned in our surveys here is legal issues. So also quite interesting when you look at that. And here really the problems are often in the details. So often companies don't have standards yet how to make a contract, for example, with a cloud BI provider. Or just think about service levels. If you have a true hybrid solution, who is now actually responsible for what, and how can you define service levels around that? So this gets tricky. It's new. It's something that many companies have never dealt with before. So they really have issues around it. They have questions, need to solve topics, and this, I think, leads to the result here that legal issues are the second often challenge. Then we have at number 3 performance, and at number 5 load time, so two more technical issues, but two things obviously to be observed. Performance and load times, often here the bandwidth can be a bottleneck. So it's often really important to look at that. How much data can you upload in what time frame? For example, are real-time scenarios really feasible with a cloud-based solution if you have data on premises? What about the query performance? What about the calculation performance, and so on? So topics to look at, and if we see it here in the results, they are definitely issues for companies. So the last trend I would like to share with you is that users are embracing managed services. So we also asked a question around the role of the vendor. So what are they really expecting? Because we see quite a change here. I mean, before it was very simple. A vendor was selling software, and then the user was more or less responsible to install it, to run it, and the vendor was providing support, but that's more or less it. And now this changes, obviously. The vendor is in a different role, and we asked the respondents here, okay, what role does your cloud BI or data management vendor actually play in your cloud implementation? And we see, okay, vendors provide tools, that's very normal, but vendors also host the environment. 60% said that they are sourcing their cloud BI and data management solution from the vendor, which I think is quite a high number, quite interesting. Then 25% say that the vendor is not only hosting the environment, but the vendor is also managing and running the environment. So this is definitely something new for a lot of vendors, but it's a service they are offering. And often, actually, it's quite useful and helpful that vendors get more exposure to the problems that typically the users had before, and they are starting to fix it and care for an environment that is easy to manage and easy to run, because now it's them themselves that have to do it. 16% even say that the vendor designs the environment. We see this also happening, that, for example, BI vendors start also to design data warehouses for users or design data models, so it's even a more extended service they are offering here. So vendor roles are changing, and users seem to embrace that. We think it's really, if you look at cloud, it fosters an outsourcing mentality. So you think, okay, maybe I don't only want the infrastructure to be provided here, but I also want more from the vendor. I want an up-and-running solution that's serviced and managed. So that might be the reason around the trend we can observe here. So with that, I just want to finish up here with an overview of the 6 trends I presented today. So generally speaking, we see cloud at a tipping point, from a lot of interest, a lot of discussions around it, to real implementation. I think this is what's happening right now. Small and medium sizes are leading the way. Larger companies are following. Power users are the ones that are driving it in companies today, also following the maturity of the software that's now also supporting this. We see that hybrid solutions are becoming more prevalent. Both. We are not looking only at hybrid cloud, meaning a mixture of public and private cloud, but definitely at hybrid BI solutions that can mix on-premises and cloud components. We see that from the challenges, that non-technical issues are cloud analytics initiative issues, that they are really things that need to be considered when moving into the cloud. And the last trend I wanted to share with you today is that we see users are embracing managed services, that they are demanding more from their vendors, and that vendors also are actually providing this. So you could actually rethink the traditional model of a software vendor, because often they are now not only software vendors, but also provide more and more services around this. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Josh, ending my part of the presentation here.
Thank you very much. Really interesting how those trends are moving along. We're seeing much of the same thing of having our smaller customers, our smaller deployments are where we're getting really rapid adoption in the cloud. We're seeing some of the similar challenges and concerns around data sovereignty and performance in the cloud, and also seeing the gains that you're talking about as well. So what I'll talk about for the next little bit, next 10 minutes or so, is Qlik's vision of hybrid cloud analytics. We at Qlik really believe that is the next major trend. We don't see most customers, or very many at all, actually moving 100% to cloud because there's so much data that's still on-premise, and lots of other good reasons to leverage on-premise infrastructure and on-premise deployments as well. But of course, just as equal strong reasons to move to the cloud. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of some futures here. So you get my wonderful legal disclaimer. This just reminds you that we're in a very dynamic industry, and while I'm going to lay out our plans as of today, of course these plans could change over time as the market adjusts and shifts, and as demands from our customers and change as well. So what is a true hybrid cloud analytics? And I think Carsten really led into this nicely, and thank you for that. It's really about having that choice, ongoing choice of where you're deploying and what you're deploying where, on-premise, private cloud, public cloud. What that enables is an optimization of computing. So what we envision is capabilities to really optimize and use the advantages of cloud where it's an advantage to scale and to optimize compute, but also use the advantages of, say, larger machines that are sitting on premise that do dedicated jobs in order to ensure that you have the capabilities you need locally on premise. The thing, though, is while we're doing all of this, huge amount of choice, we're optimizing compute, we still want to make sure that the user experience is completely seamless. So to the user, they really don't need to know exactly where things are running and where data is residing. They just want to use it and have it work. Of course, we want to track these things. We want to make sure that we can surface these things. But ultimately, the user experience should be seamless regardless of where the hybrid solution is running. And so you end up with a platform for visual analytics that can support any use case, regardless of the data stored or the platform is stored. Let's dig in a little bit further on that about what I mean by value of ongoing choice. Today, what you have to decide how you want to deploy, and what Qlik's vision is to be able to seamlessly mix the infrastructures and use what works for you at the time. So what that means is you can have on-premise, you can have cloud, you can have private cloud, public cloud, and have that seamlessly mixed together and co-mingle, and actually change the amounts that are being used. It also means that you can keep your data anywhere. So the solution itself doesn't care where the data is, whether it's on-premise or through the cloud, and it will respect where that data needs to reside. As Carsten talked about, regulations are a really key component of cloud. So often companies have certain data that absolutely cannot leave the country, that perhaps can't even leave the building. We want to make sure that that's respected, but we don't want to lose the benefits of data that perhaps, say, you have public data coming in that can be hosted anywhere, or perhaps you have other information that doesn't have the same regulations on it. If that's all respected within the infrastructure, within the solution, then you can leverage the benefits of the public cloud, of private cloud, while still keeping data that perhaps needs to remain on-premise and following those regulations, and knowing that that's followed throughout your entire deployment. The thing we also know for sure is regardless of where you are today, your needs will evolve, things will change. Everyone knows that the only thing for sure is that things will change. And what we see as things move forward is that our customers' needs and the needs of the deployment are going to evolve over time. So perhaps a certain infrastructure mix or a certain data mix is going to be required at a certain point in time. It probably will change over time, and we want to be able to evolve that over time and seamlessly evolve that. So that's the value of ongoing choice. You don't have to pick something and then stick with it. You can pick something that works now and then evolve that over time. For optimizing compute is also really key to this hybrid cloud infrastructure. That's where you really get the benefits of being hybrid, by being able to optimize what is used where. So the first thing you need to do that is you need multi-directional orchestration. So that means automating the analytics services, data access, updates on demand publishing, and all across all the infrastructure types. This is a lot more than just syncing between servers. Syncing between servers just means that one server is the same as the other server. Actually orchestrating it means that different pieces of infrastructure will perform different roles at different times. It literally is running infrastructure like a conductor runs an orchestra. You have different jobs. You have different instruments playing the melody at some point, and then other instruments will play the melody at other points. So having that orchestration is really, really key to making sure that you have everything coordinated, and also you're optimizing how things are running so that the right infrastructure is doing the right job at the right time. This is enabled by having an open and extensible microservices architecture. This is something that Qlik has already built today. We're running in our cloud. We have a full microservices architecture running there. And for those of you who perhaps are not familiar with microservices, what it means is that you have small components that have a defined input and a defined output, and it runs a job, if you will, that does the processing for that small component, or does the task for that small component. And the benefit here is that you can spin up and spin down microservices as needed. So you don't need to spin up a whole new piece of infrastructure. You just spin up and down microservices. And this is the cutting, or actually the bleeding edge of how to design cloud software today. So we're already building. We've already built that in our cloud, and we've becoming more and more proficient in how to run that. And what it means for you as a customer is your costs get driven down in terms of running the infrastructure. It means Qlik's costs of running a multi-tenant environment are driven down, and we can pass that on to you. But there's another really interesting benefit of microservices is because it's a component that has a defined input and defined output, it's relatively easy to swap that out and improve that one piece without affecting the whole system. So it means that a continuous release cycle and a continuous improvement can occur as well of the actual software solution. So we have all of these little components running around with microservices. We have multi-directional orchestration, and in order to make that manageable, it has to be managed as one. There has to be a single interface that will enable the entire system to be managed as one and control it all from one location. So go back to my analogy of an orchestra. It's a conductor. You need a single conductor conducting everything across there. So that's how you optimize compute in our view, and that's what we're driving towards for hybrid cloud. And then the final thing is that seamless user experience. So when we think about users, often we think about a single user, but the reality is there's multiple different kinds of users. There's those power users that we talked about earlier. There are basic users, there are developers, there's administrators, and then they also have different use cases for how they are interacting. Sometimes you just want to go in and get a number and leave, and you're like, okay, great, sales are up, I'm good, move on. Other times you need to do deep analysis. So you need to know how that seamless experience, regardless of the skill level or the use case, and it has to be able to manage that entire use case across all users. So, those users are going to come in and they're going to use multiple devices. Even a single device, like an iOS device these days, you can think of all the different screen sizes that you could have, different orientations. With the iPad Pro, now you have multiple interfaces with the pen beyond just the fingers. And being able to have the visualizations and the entire experience right size for the device, have it fully interactive anywhere in the world, is really key to giving a seamless experience to users. They should be able to move between whichever device they have. I'm looking at my desk right now. I got 4 devices on my desk. I could use any of those for analytics at any time. And that actually extends beyond just the cloud and online experience. We often find ourselves in cases where we're offline still. We think about you're either offline because you have poor connectivity, you just want to work offline and then maybe bring something back online, or you're in a situation where you're perhaps not sure if you'll have strong connectivity or not. And so having a completely consistent experience offline and online, I think, is really key. And that starts to get into the clients become one of the components of the hybrid environment, and they can drop offline and online and continue to be orchestrated between the larger environment as well. So that's our vision of what hybrid cloud analytics look like, what the true hybrid cloud analytics should look like. So let me talk a little bit about how we see Qlik getting there. It's a lot more, as you can see, than just having data in two places, which is an important part as well. So this is where we're at today, and this is my attempt to express similar to what Karsten showed, which is in Qlik's case, on the left-hand side, we have QlikSense Enterprise, which is a single-tenanted, on-premise or private cloud solution. You can deploy it there. It's our most used product, our flagship product right now. Fully secured, regulated, and has complete enterprise scale behind it. This is going to be deployed in the cloud, and it can actually do hybrid, basic hybrid cloud, we could call it, where it can access data in multiple locations. That's a core differentiator of Qlik, is our capability to associate data. It has no problems doing that regardless of where the data resides, but it sucks that data in. And then we have QlikSense Cloud on the right-hand side, which is Qlik's multi-tenant solution. It can access data in the cloud and then starting recently on-premise as well. And it's really directed more towards groups and teams. It's those early adopters, those small, medium businesses. It's directed towards that. The thing is you have to pick one. You can pick one or the other, and you lose that choice right now today. Where Qlik's going is to remove that choice problem. So we want to make the benefits of the private cloud single tenant solution managed by a customer or managed through a managed service, and the multi-tenant solution that you can work along that continuum. So we can really truly enable your strategy. Perhaps you're partially in the cloud. Actually, almost for sure, you're partially in the cloud today. I have yet to come across anyone who's fully on-premise or who's fully in the cloud. Even customers who claim to be fully in the cloud, they inevitably have some spreadsheets that they're using as data sources as well, which are residing on someone's machine. It's essentially on-premise. So where Qlik really thinks the market needs to go, and where we're going very aggressively, is to enable a solution that allows the customer's choice to be respected and allows the customer to move along this continuum between being fully on-premise and fully in the cloud and reside somewhere in the middle and move over time. It also enables, depending on where you are, enables you to move from one spot to another. So most of the market right now, particularly the larger deployments, are on the left-hand side. They're on-premise and they're moving towards the cloud. Most of the smaller deployments, the small, medium businesses, they're on the right-hand side, and they're perhaps moving and bringing some things on-premise or bringing some things onto single tenant for multi-tenant. So where Qlik's driving our development is to develop a completely seamless experience between what's in our public cloud, on our multi-tenanted cloud, QlikSense Cloud, and with QlikSense Enterprise. Seamless administration and bringing data sources together, but allowing them to remain in the same location. So together for analysis, but the data actually resides in the location of your choice. You started to see perhaps some things that we're doing around that. For example, our recent iOS mobile solution that we announced. That's an example of where we've ported the engine over to different off of Windows onto Linux. Now it can run on iOS. That's an example of where the orchestration is starting to happen, which will be part of the key of our story for hybrid cloud. Ultimately, what does it look like? Well, ultimately, what it will look like is something like this. So we have one product, workloads and deployments and capabilities to deploy anywhere you'd like, and you can evolve the platform as you need to work with it. So we have on the bottom left, we have an on-premise deployment that is sitting in region A, and then an on-premise deployment on the right-hand side in region B. We have a private cloud deployment on the top right, region C, and then we have Qlik's clouds, our multi-tenant service. And all of these are being orchestrated between each other to give the ultimate solution for the compute as well as for user experience. So that's where we're going. This is what we vision is true hybrid cloud. There'll be several steps along the way, of course, and we're working towards making that a smooth transition from where you are today to where you're going to want to be in the future. So that's a little bit of vision based on the trends. I'll stop right there, and I'd love, Carsten, if you had some thoughts about where we're heading, that would be great to hear your input on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. Thanks. I think we are quite in line with the vision, and I think you very well explained what you're up to, and I think it's a very good plan. But now the first question I would have is, what is the timing around this? What are your plans? When will this vision become reality?
Yeah, so it's a journey, and today you're already seeing some of the foundational components of that. The example is us running our multi-tenant cloud, ClickSense Cloud, is fully on microservices, and then that will evolve into the ClickSense Enterprise product. Where do we get to when we have a full commercial offering? You're looking at late this year, early next year, where there'll be a commercial offering with a lot of these capabilities. But I think that what we'll see is we'll also know that we need to adjust as market feedback comes through. And to get to this 100% of this vision will take longer than that. And the reality of it is it'll be constantly evolving because we're going to move more and more to continuous release and updates to the software as we get the feedback. So when do we get to fully hybrid cloud, fully under this vision? That's going to be, in 2018 somewhere. But I think the benefits of what we're talking about here, you'll start to see, earlier than that. You're actually starting to see them in the product today. It's the component pieces, and then it'll come together into something that you can really get your hands on late this year, early next year.
Okay, but that's good. I mean, it's not too far out. A second question I would have is, we are seeing in our data and our client interaction that Cloud BI is at a tipping point. Can you, as a vendor, can you see that too in your data? I mean, in sales, in inquiries? Can you confirm that?
Yeah, without a doubt, we are seeing that as well in terms of inquiries, in terms of sales. We've actually been seeing cloud for a long time. Being really key, but it's been interesting is that we have a lot of customers who've been taking our ClickSense Enterprise and actually even ClickView Enterprise, our other solution, and putting it in the cloud for years and years and years. And it's kind of been an underground thing in some ways because often cloud and SaaS get confused, and SaaS is where it's fully hosted, and whereas cloud is just where you physically put it. So we're seeing that, but what we're seeing in the larger customers is they still want a lot of control, so in the enterprises they typically want a lot of control. So they're very interested in these private cloud solutions and these hosted, managed solutions, not hosted solutions, where they have full control over exactly what's happening, but they still want us in the cloud. With our smaller customers, our groups and teams, we're seeing a very strong trend now towards a fully managed SaaS solution with ClickSense Cloud Business. It's growing rapidly. So we're seeing that as well. So very much it's in line with what you're seeing. The thing I find very interesting though is that going to cloud doesn't always mean going to SaaS. And that need for controls is I think is a lever that's going to continue to be I'll call it a conversation about how much do you turn over to a managed service or a vendor, because then you don't have to manage it, and how much do you continue to take on yourself and as a business. And I think that's a conversation we're going to have for many years to come. And I think over time, what we'll find is in different cases and different situations, the need for control versus the desire for speed and an instant solution will change. So that's where I think hybrid cloud comes in. It's really gives that ongoing choice.
Yeah, no, I agree. We see the same trend. And I think it's also a matter of trust. So trust trust in the vendor, in the capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
and this is right now being built up. And with that, we also see the change. Okay, very interesting.
Great. Well, we've seen a number of questions come through as well through the chat. We'll answer as many of those as we can along the way. I can see we're actually running short on time now. So thank you for submitting those questions. If we don't get back to you directly on this, we will follow up with you via email. I just wanted to thank you again for joining us, Carsten, today. It's been a really great webinar, I think. There's our Twitter handles if anyone would like to tweet about this or if you have any comments. That's probably an easy way to get in touch with us. And with that, we'll close up the webinar. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.